Welcome to the Renew Church podcast, a conversation where we have honest, authentic conversations around Jesus, his mission. And today in the studio, I am joined with our co-host and very good friend, Pastor Andrew Wood. Last week, I much to my chagrin, introduced you as guest.
It hurt a lot. All week I was questioning, am I a guest? This is a one-time appearance?
No.
I thought we were in this together, and then
We're
felt
in
like
this
we
together.
were not.
This is like our thing. We're production, execution, we direct it, and write the show. These are our credits.
Yeah.
You are not co-host, or you are co-host. You are not guest. Anyway, welcome back to the podcast. I'm so happy that you guys joined us. Today we have some fun conversations. I think about right now, time of filming this. This is Sunday during the COVID crisis. We just got done live streaming our Sunday service, and we thought let's just jump into some conversations about Jesus.
Yeah.
What better time to do that? So, but I want to know first how you have been managing. How are you doing?
How am I doing?
As a person?
Yeah.
I just want to check in.
Well, this week differently than last week. How have I been managing? I feel like we've had a couple longer days.
Yeah.
That are exhausting. Like I was here from 4:30 until 11:30 last night, and then got here at 6:30 this morning. So I'm like feeling like by the time we're doing this, I'm feeling toast. Yeah. But like we said last week, we talked about Sabbath rest. Tomorrow I was just going to be straight day off, not sending any content out, not doing anything, trying to stay off device and stuff like that. So that's when I'll get filled up. So in that respect, I'm feeling like worn out right now, but I feel like
it'll all come around.
Yeah, it'll be restful, and I'm encouraged by all this. I'm encouraged by. I'm like slightly. I have to stay off social media because I feel like when I'm on social media, I'm getting annoyed at the just the amount of annoying things that people are saying over and over again. The
anxiety climbs. You know what I hate about social media right now?
What's that?
Is meme stealing. Okay, don't see a good meme and then pretend like it's yours. Like,
do you have an example of that?
Yeah, I saw a meme that was like, homeschooling hasn't been going great. Day one, my 4-year-old's expelled. My 12-year-old
I saw that one so many times.
Is in detention, and the teacher got fired for drinking on the job, which is funny. But I saw people posting it as like their comment on a real thing, and I was kind of like, "Get your own joke."
Yeah, I feel
like
that.
We've seen the meme.
I feel that.
Anyway, that's just my little hot take about internet meme protocol.
Pretty hot. It's pretty hot.
Anyway, well, one of the things that has been a new reality for you and for me is I like to work from Starbucks. That's my go-to place. I like being around people, and more importantly, away from my kids.
Yeah.
Not because I don't love them, but because it's really hard to get stuff done when I have 4 children, and my at-home office has a glass door that can't lock, and so it's just kind of a free-for-all. They see Dad in there working, and they just come in, and you can't be mad at them. They just want to hang out with Dad, but
right,
it's
and you're so cool that I want to hang out with you. So
yeah, I don't think that's about, it's more stuff like, Dad, this thing is. My cape got caught in my scooter wheel. True story. I had to spend 5 minutes detangling my son's Darth Vader cape from his scooter wheels because he was going around dressed as Darth Vader in the basement.
It sounds like I would want to be friends with your son.
I felt like a hero. Yeah.
He's a hero. Your son's a hero.
Ben's the man.
Yeah.
And he'll correct you, too, if you, say the wrong, whoever he's being at the time. He'll correct you about it if you get it wrong.
Right.
He was dressed up in most of the Darth Vader stuff, but he was actually a ninja, and I said, "Hey, Darth," and he's like, "I'm a ninja." So, anyway. So, working from home is hard. Have you found that to be the case, or?
I have found that to be the case. Yeah. I have. I love being home. I don't love having to work at home, and part of that's because if I'm home, I just want to be home.
Yeah.
Part of that is we don't have even a basement space with a door that's glass.
Right.
The house we're living in right now, my workspace is either FaceTiming on my bed while my daughter and wife are in the kitchen living room,
or
having a conversation or trying to do work on the couch, while my
It's just
my
open
daughter's
air.
climbing on me or banging on something or whatever. Yeah, there's just
Yeah.
there's no designated close the door space.
I see.
And so I'm having a hard time getting things done at home, which we have the luxury, at least I do. I have an office here, so I can come here for
Right.
silence and whatever to get stuff done. But then,
Yeah.
we're also here a lot for doing this kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
it's a challenge right now getting stuff done. I used to be able to go to the Starbucks just like you.
Yeah.
For a couple hours, I'd walk there and get stuff done there. So.
Shout out Monogram Coffee in Galt in Cambridge. Monogram Coffee, third wave. They're awesome.
Yeah, they are. I've been there.
That's good. Anyway, so when we're allowed to go to coffee shops again, make sure you make your way out to Cambridge.
Yeah, we should just do this there.
We could. They probably let us do it. It'd be fun. Yeah, I think that though the working from home thing is kind of a new reality for a lot of people. And I was kind of I was thinking about what tips I have to to ensure successful work from home things. And one of them that I think has actually worked really well is Austin and I, my wife Austin, we had a conversation about it. Like, hey, we need to have like this is my work time and this is my not work time. And it kind of helped us to kind of designate it because there's often the temptation to because I'm home or whatever the other parent, so like they can cover their normal parenting duties, and we just found that to be really, really challenging. And so we kind of set up work time and not work time. So what I did is I assumed my kids' schedule.
Okay.
So in other words, I work when they start their schoolwork or when they're doing, we give them some screen time every day. So when they're doing those kind of quieter activities, that's when I'm working. And when they're playing, when they're doing other things, I am taking breaks. And if I need to finish stuff up, I do it after they go to bed.
That's wise.
Yeah,
That's helpful.
It's just better for us to kind of get into the rhythm that already is working.
Because then you don't feel like you're robbing from your kids' desire for daddy time.
Yeah, why
in order
fight
to
it?
Work. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like my kids want to play Lego and tickle fight and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Austin sometimes she bring me tea and stuff, so that's very encouraged.
That's really nice.
She brought me tea and a sandwich the other day.
Wow.
That was pretty. Yeah, she's pretty awesome.
That is awesome.
We should call this the Erik shouting out his awesome wife podcast.
Yeah, we should.
Where we have honest and authentic conversations around Austin and her greatness.
Yeah, we should. That would help you.
We could do brownie points.
Yeah.
She doesn't listen to these though, so that's.
I wouldn't if I was married to you.
Does Ashton?
I can't imagine she did, but I think she listened to the last one. But I don't know which mindset she's listening with.
Yeah.
If I was her listening to me, I would listen with the mindset of like, let me make sure I help you not say as dumb stuff in the future.
Yeah.
Ashton helps me with that a lot.
Yeah.
So
That's good.
yeah, but there's nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, we were talking before the show. We were talking about some interesting ways that we've seen people, some things that people have been doing, and amidst the new reality. And you had a cool example. You and Ashton actually had a cool example of something somebody was doing, sort of entrepreneurial and a really creative idea. Why don't you tell us about it?
Well, Ashton finds this stuff all the time. She's really good at that. And she was on Facebook and she found that there was a florist with a greenhouse who they normally would have sold all their flowers to some store or something. And they couldn't do that because wherever they would have sold to is not selling the flowers. So instead, they set up in their garage, and they're kind of out in the middle of nowhere, like Burlington, up Derry Road, somewhere up that way. So they're quite far out, but they set up in their garage, basically just like bins and bins and bins of bouquets of flowers and different plants and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they would replenish it, but they had like kind of like a drive-in service where you pull into their driveway, and you get out, and it's like $5 for a bouquet of flowers, and then you just put the $5 in like this bin for however many flowers that you buy.
Yeah.
And so there's no contact, and it's just one family at a time going in, paying for their flowers, taking their flowers, and leaving. And so we ended up getting, 8 bouquets of flowers, and we're able to kind of give some away as like, nice little gifts and keep some. We've got one here on the set.
Featured on our live stream.
Featured on our
this
set.
morning.
Yeah, and it was just a really creative business idea. It was a really creative way to still, practice business. And we sat in our car for about 20 minutes in line, and then when we left, the line was twice as long. So people were there for, probably sitting there for 20 to 30 minutes waiting to just get these really nice flowers that they probably couldn't have found other places. Idea. So yeah, we still like to have fresh flowers in our houses and stuff like that. And this was a safe, socially distanced way of of doing that. I thought it was so creative and thoughtful.
I wonder, wouldn't it be like awesome if like this whole thing just exploded with little entrepreneurial projects like that?
I think it is.
I think it will too.
I think people are seeing a different way to do commerce and business.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually going to help them think about kind of new revenue streams and just way to get the product. It's forcing us to be creative in the quote unquote business we're a part of, which isn't a business, but how to do church, how to do community and stuff like that, and how to teach and stuff like that. So it's definitely making everybody think outside the box, and I think it's a good thing. Yeah.
I do too. I think, what do they say? Necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
Isn't that a quote?
Yeah, you made that meme up, didn't you?
No, I don't. I think that's really old. Oh. But I'll take credit.
You should.
Because, I'm a huge fan of people who take credit for other people's stuff. Yeah. So I do think it's cool. And I've seen a lot of other things. We were talking about somebody, Jake Sawaski was telling me about somebody at our church who was doing like food and, like cooking food. And I don't know all the details.
Yeah, they're normally a photographer. And that's not a thing right now for them. And so instead they were, baked or cooked a bunch of big thing of I think it was like bolognese sauce or something like that.
That sounds great.
And we're selling it to friends and family on Facebook or whatever. I'm like, oh, that's so smart. Make Cafe is another example. Yeah. Make Cafe connected to the Milton campus. They offered soup deliveries and they thought they'd get 5, 6, 7 people who are in need or whatever. And all of a sudden it's become like there's getting sometimes 30, 40 orders a day of soup and they're delivering it. And I could imagine they're learning some things that are good about that and some things that are not great about that. But they're still providing their same service to their customer base in a new and unique way. Yeah. And we just had some of their chili for lunch.
So good.
And it was so good. Like, it was so good. And so, they're still doing good work really and serving the community in different ways. So I think it's cool.
Yeah, Make Cafe. That was the first thing I've had from them, I think. So that was good.
There you go.
Yeah. Check it out.
Yeah.
They're Renew Strong.
Yeah, they are.
That's really cool. Getting creative, all that kind of stuff. Another thing I noticed is that if any of you guys listening are gamers, we were talking to somebody and they were saying that Discord has now kind of become a platform for online interface for meetings and stuff like that, which is hilarious to me because it used to be the thing that you play Call of Duty with your friends so that you could yell at each other and, scream at the internet through your Discord server. And now it's like a youth. So, Mom, you're wherever you are, you're welcome for us video game nerds who are developing apps and tools for people to use to get us through this time. The video game world has provided something useful.
Well, they've been leading the way in online community for years.
And everybody thought it was fake.
I know. Everyone thought it was fake, or they thought it was so silly. They thought it was past. They thought, even
your
like
friends
the
on the internet aren't real.
Whatever. Yeah. And now it's like everyone's like, hey, can we use your stuff so we can be friends with people without being able to hang out with them? And they're like, yeah, man.
And 13 million World of Warcraft nerds rejoiced.
They did. Yeah, thank you, World of Warcraft nerds. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Chris Springer. Shout out Chris Springer. He won't listen to this either. He got me into World of Warcraft. Okay. Way back in the day. Well, today, I just thought it would be cool if we talked about something. This podcast is all about Jesus, like we're pretty big fans of his work. I'm a huge fan of his work. Yeah. And I'm a huge piece of work of,
that was a product of his work.
Yeah, that was right.
Yeah.
A piece of work.
That's actually
anyway.
Good. Yeah.
So we wanted to just talk about one of the biggest kind of concepts in the scriptures is the Great Commission, right?
Yep.
Matthew 28:19 and 20. And that in this season, I've seen a lot of people talking about the Great Commission, our purpose as a church, and kind of reevaluating this because, as a church, we can't meet. And so the thing that we were most identified with, probably, socially at least, is Sunday morning worship services, pews in a pulpit and that kind of thing, whatever it looks like for your church. But that's kind of what the Christian life has been about. It's like you kind of do your week, and then on Sunday you go to church, and that's what identifies you as a Christian. Right. And this has caused us to really rethink that. I think that's a really healthy thing. So just to kind of revisit the text, Matthew 28:19-20 says, that our purpose is to go into the world and baptize people in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, making disciples, teaching them to obey all that He commands, right? and that, then with the promise of surely I'll be with you forever, right? Until the end of the age, that's what he says. And I was just thinking about how cool it is as we've been getting creative with our business model and our revenue streams and the way that we're connecting socially. How is the Great Commission affected in this current situation, this current reality?
Yeah.
Do you have any takes off the top?
Yeah. Well, I was thinking like there's a lot of people out there who have produced really good videos or podcasts or content about the Great Commission or that is in order to accomplish the Great Commission, i.e. great videos that clearly share the gospel or define the gospel, really well shot, sound great, look great, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So there's people, and we all have access to them on YouTube, on wherever.
Right.
But I was thinking like, man, the call is for me as a disciple of Jesus to go and make a disciple of Jesus. And even though there's like better production value things out there that can tell people what the gospel is and teach them to obey, quote unquote, and all that kind of stuff, I'm still called to do that myself as an individual disciple of Jesus. And that's probably done most effectively still by me to my friend or my peer or my family member than it is, hoping that they catch some other church's live stream or they see that content I reposted. And so like we're in a season where it's more acceptable to be reposting and sharing all sorts of good content and good stuff, and that could be a means to people hearing the gospel clearly and potentially even considering it in their heart and responding to it. But it shouldn't take the responsibility off of us. Yeah. And I think as a church, what we've done a poor job of is we've placed the responsibility of disciple making and baptizing and teaching to obey on the pastors, and we as a lay people are just being taught to obey. Yeah. And I think what we're going to probably see is we're going to see that look similarly online, where it's like it's still the job of the content producers to do the teaching and obeying. Yeah. And I think maybe the consideration in this season is that no, it hasn't changed. As a disciple, I'm the disciple maker, and I'm called to that. And so what does it not just look like for me to share a live stream, which is good, but what does it actually look like for me to take some time to think about how I can uniquely, creatively, and thoughtfully be on mission, doing the Great Commission online, personally, to my friends and neighbors. Yeah,
and I think, too, I mean, I agree with what you said. That's the opportunities that we have are different, but the purpose and the calling is the same, the mode in which those things are delivered, I think, changes, but those things will never change, which is cool. And I always remind people as a pastor, so if you're listening to this, hear me as a pastor just saying that, I take very seriously the Ephesians passage that says that, pastors were given to the church to train the church for the work of the ministry, right? Ephesians 4, right? I think, I don't know, somewhere around there. I'm not really great with the passages, but I mean, the idea is that as a pastor, my job is really just to equip people to share their faith, their belief in who Jesus is, and that's kind of our purpose. My job is not to lead your friend to Jesus. Your job is to lead your friend to Jesus, right?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we fall into that habit really a lot, as church goers, right? Because as a member of the church, I'm still doing those things because I still have the personal responsibility. But anyway, it's just interesting to think about the church in that way. What are some ways that that you see as potential? Like there are some negatives to this, right? The fact that we can't gather. What are some of the negatives that you've seen, or maybe the dangers that you've seen, just amidst this new current reality for the church?
Yeah. I was thinking about just the church's presence on social media has grown just because everyone's presence on social media has grown. Yeah. But what that also means is that the propensity to share stuff that actually hurts our testimony compared to helping our testimony is greater because we're sharing more. We're saying more. We're taking more, we're taking more sides on certain issues. We can be a little bit aggressive in the things we're posting and how we're communicating certain things. We're paying attention. We're all paying attention to politics because we're all like, how is the government going to help us get through this kind of thing? But but then, we might be blurring the lines between, our spiritual commitments and our worldview as a Jesus follower, and then our, commitments to our nation and our worldview as a person, as a part of a nation, our citizenship, I guess,
right.
our worldly citizenship. So blurring those lines, I think, can be a little bit of a danger for us. And then just oversharing or over communicating can actually, it can kind of get obnoxious and annoying a little bit. And I don't know about you, I feel that way when I'm seeing stuff, and maybe people feel that way about me. I'm not sure. Yeah. But the reality is, like, we could be hurting our testimony by oversharing and being overly active with, not super positive, helpful, kind, nice, generous content that we're producing or sharing.
Do you think it's important to kind of contextual, because the live stream thing is great, but like in our current reality, it's kind of like you're standing on the street doing church, right? And so like anybody can click on and anybody can watch and and so you don't have as much context. Like as a teacher of the Bible, you can safely assume that people who come to my service are at least interested in hearing what I have to say about the scripture, or what the scripture has to say to our world. And now, do you think it's important for us to maybe adjust the way that we're presenting ourselves as the church, and maybe not have so much like insider talk, or I
was actually just thinking about that. I think one of the things and I don't want to toot our horn, but I'll toot it. One of the things that we've done well and we've gotten good feedback on is the pre and post service live stream stuff that we've been doing, which is basically like we're being ourselves. We're making the jokes we would make, and some people have been offended by a few of them. We're not trying to be offensive, but there's things like that's how I would talk. And then the point of that is like we're real people. We're not trying to put on the show. We're not trying to be tidy and clean and perfect and prim and proper.
Right.
In the same way that at least at Renewed Church, we don't try to do that on Sunday morning. People usually think of church. They think, oh, you all show up, you dress up, you put on your perfect face, you put on, your perfect clothes, and everyone's perfect, right? And the reality is at Renewed Church, we don't act that way. We don't live that way at church. But when you're starting to produce stuff online that's going to stay there and that everyone can see, you can fall into the trap of like wanting to perfectly curate something or produce something that's so clean, and you're super careful with what you say and whatever. And I think something that's really important is like you're still you're still a human, whether you're talking to a camera or you're talking to your friend, right? You want to treat them
a show
the same way, which is why I like this format, because like I'm not being that scripted in what I'm saying, and I'm already cringing at things I've said earlier in this podcast. But we're not retaking this. We're
honest and authentic conversations around you. Yeah, right.
But I think doing that online too is really important. Show who you are. Be who you are. Be no different online than you would be in person. But at the same time, be like socially aware as much as you would be in person. You should be that online as well.
Yeah, no,
kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, it's just I'm just thinking about these things in real time. Really, it's like the idea of I want Jesus to be represented well, and I think that that kind of leads into a larger conversation about internet protocol and like the way that we post, no matter what the season is and whatever. Like if we have like. I'm a Christ follower in my bio, and then we're posting certain things that maybe Jesus wouldn't agree with. Like, Jesus probably doesn't agree with everything that Donald Trump says or that Justin Trudeau says or that, whoever. And we sometimes can ascribe certain things in our representation of Christ on the internet that I think we need to be careful about.
Yeah. But I guess the other side of that, like we were just saying, is like don't not be yourself.
True.
Right? Like, so don't not be yourself, but you should still be wise. In the same way that you wouldn't walk into a room of people you don't really know that well and start spouting off crazy political views and saying really negative things about the leader of your nation, people would be annoyed by you. They'd be like, what is your deal?
Yeah.
If you're doing that on Facebook or whatever, like people are as annoyed, right? You have a couple people who are like, yeah, dude. And then the rest are like, don't be so aggressive about it. So it's not like don't be yourself, right? And you can have political views, but
I think too. We're at a point now where like your presence on the internet is so common, and so like everybody kind of understands, that those things are true. That you're not always this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think there's some freedom in that. Anyway,
that's true. That's good.
Yeah,
that's fair.
I found it to be interesting. I also want to talk to you about not only just like the live stream, the internet presence, that kind of thing. How how does our current situation affect our ability to actually make disciples? Like, what is it that you need to make a disciple?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, somebody said this to me, I think it was like a year ago or so, and they were kind of talking about how the reason why you can't, it's really hard to be a Christian without the church, because what you're doing as a Christian is you're learning how to follow the ways of Jesus, but the ways of Jesus you're learning to follow are directly related to interpersonal communication and interaction, right? Like it's, you're not loving, if you sit in a basement alone forever, like how do you express love? How do you share love? You're not learning how to love without actually learning how to love people, real people in real time, in person, strangers and friends and family kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so, the challenge is like, where are we learning to actually live this stuff out in real time? And then how do, like, maybe how are we trained to do it? The church is kind of supposed to be that. It's supposed to be a training ground for learning to love people who are different than you in the context of like the kingdom of God. And then going from there to actually apply that love to people who are kind of outside of that kind of already committed community doing that. And it's hard because you don't get that practice in person necessarily in the same way. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I always think too, like, if I'm called to make a disciple, like that last part of the Great Commission to teach them to obey all of it that Jesus commands, right? That's one of those things that we're always sort of refining that. That's always, it's like an ongoing thing. And so we're always learning that stuff. And so in order to teach somebody everything that you commanded, that's like a decades long commitment in some ways, right? Or lifetime, right? And I don't think that we look at disciple making that way. I think we sort of feel like there's a minimum that you get to, and then they're on their own, or you know what I'm saying? And there's just also this like quantity aspect. If you think about it, Jesus really only made 11 disciples, right?
No.
Well, sort of.
I mean, like
he invested his time,
his direct apostles, but
he made more.
Thousands of followers,
5,000. They see 3,000.
If they're followers of Jesus, they're disciples. Sure. But I understand.
But
what
only
you're saying.
Thousands. Okay, even Jesus only made thousands of disciples.
Yeah, in person. Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And so what's the responsibility for us is relatively small. The expectation is relatively small. The impact is really, really high.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's freeing in a lot of ways. Like you don't have to be, some, Carl Lentz kind of guy and influencing thousands and thousands and millions of people every week.
No.
You can just raise your kids right and love your neighbors.
Yeah, a good example of this is there's somebody at our campus who recently called me and we had a good conversation, but they were basically saying, I got baptized last year, a couple years ago. I forget when it was, but they're like, I've had a hard time. Like I'm still having a hard time knowing how to read the Bible for myself and understanding it. And I'm like, oh yeah, there's that whole part. Like there's the make disciples, i.e., get people to follow Jesus because it's the best thing for them. And then there's the baptize piece, which we're all like, yeah of course, let's do that. We can argue about it, but we should still do it somehow.
Yeah.
But then there's the teaching to obey is a life thing. And part of that is like teaching basics like, hey, this is actually how you read the Bible more effectively. Yeah. And they've kind of been sitting by thinking like, is this pastor shepherd going to help me do what they're supposed to help me do?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I guess that's part of it.
Yeah.
And then how do we do that now, that they're not showing up to church on Sunday morning necessarily? Yeah. Or do we have more opportunities to do that now than even before? I don't know.
You know what I would love? If everybody listening, I would love you to, even if you don't call Renew Church home, I would love you to reach out to your pastor and say, how can I be more effective as a disciple member? Like, I never get asked that question.
Yeah, that's good.
You know what I mean?
That's good.
Like, I never get asked, hey, I have this friend. I mean, occasionally I do, but hardly ever. Hey, I have this friend. Like, help me to be a disciple maker.
Right.
What I almost always get is, hey, I want to invite my friend to this thing. What, or whatever.
Yeah.
And like, it's always, will you come and speak to my friend?
Mm-hmm.
And I would love for us to, especially in this season, to be like involved in that to a certain degree. Like we want to help our church be disciple makers. You know, like that's what I feel like my calling, my job is. And we do that, you know, with our sermon, like that's part of it. But, you know, I actually would take your phone call and, like, you know what I mean, answer your email and, like, you know what I mean?
Do you have some examples? Because I'm just trying to think off the top of my head.
Yeah.
If I was sitting in a listener's shoes right now, I might be like, I may not even know what questions to ask or what I'm relying on you to tell me the things I need to get better at or know or understand or grow in order to do that. Like, what are some examples of
that's good
questions we could be asking you of how to be a better disciple maker or be discipled by you better? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like even things like, hey, if I wanted to start a Bible study, where should I start? You know, or if I wanted to, if my friend's kind of interested in this whole, is there resources that I could point them to? Because there are, you know. I want to learn more about the Bible. What are some reliable sources that I could go to? Stuff like that, or hey, I'm trying to have a conversation with, you know, they're from this background, you know, they come from a Muslim faith. How do I interact with them and kind of, you know, like I have a friend who he comes from a Muslim background, and we've been having really good. He also doesn't speak English, and so he's actually getting really really good. But we had like a whole gospel conversation over Google Translate.
That's awesome.
Which was really fun. It was like I would say something like, you know, like Jesus is blah blah, you know, and then it would translate it into his language, and it was Farsi, and it was just cool. It was cool to kind of like interact that way.
Yeah.
There's like lots of things that we, you know, that we as pastors would love to resource our people with to make them better disciple makers.
Yeah, and maybe to be fair to people, I'm feeling like as we're talking about this now, I'm thinking I think the trouble we have, or at least I have, I don't know about you, but the trouble that I have, the struggle that I have is I see so much content out there. Like, you should see my Facebook feed. You should see how many live churches are happening on my Facebook feed. There's a million of them. Yeah. So I'm literally looking at everything thinking there's so much of this out there. There's way too much. I don't want to add to it. I don't want to burden my people with telling them here's more things for you to read or more things to listen to or more videos to watch, because I see all of it. Yeah. Right? Or not all of it, but so much of it, because that's my world. But I think the trouble is that I'm not thinking that their world's probably different. Like, their news feed may not be populated with the amount of content material that mine is. And it, you know, I think if I need some, you know, answers to some philosophical questions, I know which YouTube pages to go to help satisfy those cravings, those urgings, those questions that I have. People don't. They may not. And so that maybe I assume that they're like me and that they have access to all this stuff, and they don't, because I could just, you know, I just, maybe for people listening, like, there's
you get it because the algorithm puts it in front of you.
It puts it, and there's so much out there that you could really use and benefit from that I am, and I am sorry that I'm not sharing it all the time with you. I assume maybe you don't want to be burdened with so much stuff, but if you're actually looking for more, like, please.
There's answers.
Just let us know, because there's just so much, you know, that we have access to, that I could just say, here, so much stuff, go for it and have fun.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah, one of the things too that I read an article. It was the And Sons guys. I don't know if you listen to any of their things.
It's a good podcast.
Yeah, he had an article that was kind of like, this is our moment, you know, and it was this like, you know, this article. It was a very very cool article. I encourage you to check it out, but. It kind of brought up this interesting idea that for I'm 31, in my lifetime, this could be the best moment, an opportunity for the gospel that I'll ever encounter. Up until this point, it might be, you know, at no other point in time has the world been affected by something so simultaneously and so dramatically.
The whole
you know what I mean?
World, yeah.
Yeah, like World War II was probably the last time that the world experienced something all together.
Right? Yeah, and it would have been even different because World War II was only fought in certain places, and the rest of the places could still go outside, whereas like we're all, the whole world is experiencing the same thing at the same time, same lifestyle.
And so what is interesting about, like we talked about some of the you know, the kind of beware moments of this, the COVID crisis kind of in the representation of Jesus, but this could actually be a humongous opportunity for people. And one of the things that I was thinking through is the reason that the internet is so attractive to our culture, there's a piece of it that is we are more comfortable with that medium than we are in a person-to-person interaction.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, it's like, man, what an opportunity that we have now to like send a message to somebody, or to like just post an encouraging word to somebody in their feed or in their inbox or whatever, email, whatever you need, and just say like, hey, I've been thinking about, I know you don't really know what I believe, but I just want to let you know that I'm praying for you.
Yeah.
And there's like this anonymity that we love to post, really negative things on Twitter or whatever, and we kind of hide behind our screen name. But there's also this opportunity to that, to where, man, if I'm terrified to actually like walk up to somebody at the supermarket and be like, you should think about Jesus, that I could actually have a meaningful interaction with somebody right now on the internet that could spur on further conversation.
Yeah.
I don't think it's good for you to always, but man, if you're just dipping your toes in the water in this disciple-making thing, what better time than now?
Yeah.
To just be like, hey, I've been praying for you and your family.
Yeah.
And that might start the ball rolling in a lot of different ways. And especially for people who don't have the hope of heaven.
Right.
Like this could be incredibly nerve-wracking for people who don't, the ending is happy for every Christian, right? Like we
the hope's there.
Cuts in line to heaven, and even if you get there poor, you just get more crowns, right? That's what I'm hoping for. That's what I keep telling my wife. The poorer we are, the more treasure in heaven we've stored up. So she doesn't. I don't think she buys it. So
that's really good. That's really good, Eric. And I'm even sitting here thinking, and like I'll even look at you and say it. We're doing this stuff because we feel called to do it. We feel responsible to do it. But I'm also thinking, when I'm doing this stuff, I'm literally thinking about friends and family that are on my social media who don't know Jesus. And I'll be honest, my hope is that you come across this. And if you've listened up to this point, I'm impressed. Like if you're a not Christian person who follows Jesus or doesn't really know about that yet, and you've listened up until this point, like this is actually for you. I'm motivated to do this for you because I this is a safe and comfortable way for you to like see, really what this whole thing's about and hear about it in a safe environment and an anonymous environment. Yeah. And my hope is that these kinds of things actually spur you on and encourage you and actually make you ask questions that you weren't thinking about before, or at least make a little bit more accessible to you. Because, most of the time people are afraid because it's unknown, and it's not accessible because it's unknown, right? Like I wouldn't just show up and walk into a mosque on a Friday for prayers, right? I would never do that because I just don't know. I don't know if I'm allowed to.
Right?
I don't know what to do. I don't know what's going to
pressure.
happen, right? You know what I mean? Like I don't know. I'm not a part of it. Am I even allowed to do that? You can tell me if I'm allowed. I don't know. But we're here saying like that.
It's no different. Like what we do.
You may feel the same way about me. You may feel the same way about showing up to the movie theater on Sunday morning in Milton. Yeah. And I'm here saying, like, you've gotten this far. You're looking at me. I'm saying, like, you're allowed to. You're wanted to. Like, actually, what we do on Sunday is set up for people who aren't a part of it. It's not an insider. It's actually an outsider thing. And you can feel that freedom and that safety to start that conversation, engage that conversation, or show up or be a part of like the community thing we're doing or whatever. Like, it's really me, the me and this kind of stuff that we're talking about, faith, Jesus, church, community is for you. It's accessible to you, right?
Yeah. No, I agree.
So for people to have that same perspective of this unique opportunity, I think is healthy.
Yeah,
maybe it's the whole thing. Sometimes people are turned off because like the church is pretty explicitly like we don't have ulterior motives. No.
We have a very specific motive, which is I'm convinced that Jesus is the answer. And I'm trying to convince you that Jesus is the answer. That's, but that comes across as kind of strange to people. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that's why, like, if I'm not the person you were describing, if I'm like a Christian, like sometimes that feels very like pushy almost. You know what I mean? But I think the reality is that we can be honest about, what it is that we're doing here. And the reason that we can be honest is because we're convinced that it's true.
Yeah.
If it wasn't true, I wouldn't be trying to convince you that it was. Or if I didn't believe it, right? You know what I mean?
Or if you have a better idea.
Yeah.
Like I'm open to it. I've explored them. I
considered
want more
them.
of
Yeah,
them. Yeah.
right?
There's nothing to hide here, right? It's not like, sometimes people associate churches with like new religious movements or cults or other religions that are kind of closed, and even like social groups like the Masons who like you don't really know anything. You can get in at level 3, and then anything above you don't know anything about until you're there, kind of thing. Like that's not at all with the church. That is not that.
You can ask your
opposite.
question.
It's really like here's the thing we're all reading. It's in your language. Here's all the tools to read it. Just go and read it and talk to us. You know what I mean? It's like totally open.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, and I also think it's what's great about at least my approach to the Christian faith is that if it's true, it will be true, and it can withstand scrutiny. And I think sometimes we as Christians can get kind of there's so much to know, and that's very true. Like you just mentioned a bunch of resources and like philosophical, like there's a billion different belief systems, philosophies, understandings, questions, comments, all that kind of thing, and that can seem intimidating.
Yeah.
Right. The thing that's really comforting about Jesus and the scriptures is that I have been a Christian for a long, long, long time, since I was 7, right? Mm-hmm. I've lived in this world, but I've asked tough questions my whole life. I still do. I still ask tough questions about my faith. And time again, the scripture shows me that it's true and it's reliable.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we can kind of cling to.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Any other last thoughts, comments, concerns, cries of outrage?
I mean, no, but I didn't plan on this going where it went necessarily. I don't
free form.
We had a conversation and it went somewhere where I didn't plan on it. But honestly, like I guess the last comments, the last feelings, the last thoughts are, if you're on a disciple making journey and you're trying to figure that out, and you need more resources, you need more guidance, you need more equipping, email Andrew at renewedchurch.ca, Erik at renewedchurch.ca, anybody. Like just ask, text, call, whatever. And if you're not there, you've made it this far in this podcast, which would be shocking to me if you aren't a follower of Jesus. But if you have, and you're sitting here listening, and you're like, okay, they're open to being asked really hard questions, and they want to talk about it. Then, like, don't stop, don't wait, just send the message. Yeah. And like, we're gonna be as conversational and real and raw and honest here. Yeah. Not intimidating, not forceful, just like straight up, this is where we've come and this is where we are at and this is why we think it. And what do you think kind of thing? Like just ask it, do it. Take this time to explore these really important things, these really big questions in life. It's worth it to do now as you're thinking about it, as it's fresh, rather than when you're distracted by the million other things that it takes to do life. So.
And we know that right now you have nothing better to do than ask tough questions and consider philosophical truths. And
you never
like
have something better to do. But
that's true.
Even more so now.
True. Yeah. You don't even have we can't even go to the coffee shop.
There's not even the
coffee shop.
We
can't even go to Starbucks.
There's not even like kids' sports excuses. There's even
no hockey
school.
Games on.
There's not even hockey. Like there's literally nothing to do but sit and go, like, what's the meaning of life? What happens if I do die? And like, what's the ultimate truth and meaning and purpose to this? Or is it all just a meaningless, purposeless, random exercise?
Yeah.
Ask the questions now.
Good stuff. Well, thank you so much, Andrew, for co-hosting with me yet again. Thank you, listeners, for commenting, subscribing, and staying up to with all of the content we have. Mm-hmm. If you are a member and a family member of Renewed Church, we'd invite you to check out our live streams on Sunday, our weekday connection on Thursday, and make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel for further content.
Yeah.
Be looking too, if you are a young adult and you like hearing us goof around. We're going to be releasing, and we have, by the time you've heard this, we have released our first Young Man's Guide to Life. Yeah. And I want to clarify, that is not a guys only podcast.
Yes. We're just two guys that
we're just young guys, and we're guiding young people through life, or old people. My grandma will probably get something out of it.
I think so. She'd learn a lot about us.
Yeah. Maybe not all. But yeah, you guys can check that out. But we love you guys, and
Yeah.
we're so thankful that you tuned in.
Thanks for joining us.
We'll see you next time.